Chapter 223, Outer Earth Spot. For Zhu Tui, whose reaction speed had reached 1 millisecond, getting a special flying license was never a problem. It wasn't even a problem. To Zhu Tui, there was only one problem time. He had to take out 10 to 12 hours a week to train for 3 to 5 months to get his special flying license. The time consumed was too much. Therefore, Zhu Tui chose this shortcut after carefully studying the rules. Of course, this so-called shortcut was actually an extremely difficult test. Huang came to a conclusion after compiling all kinds of information about the so-called special flying extreme test. Actually, they were just executing the test procedures and standards of the fighter pilots. As long as he could pilot a repulsive force flying car and reach the standard of a fighter pilot, he would not have to go through 3 to 5 months of simulation training and actual driving training. He could also approve and issue a special flying license. At the same time, the entry standard for selecting fighter pilots on the entire Blue Star was an 8 millisecond reaction speed. In other words, after passing the extreme test, Zhu Tui had already reached the standard of a fighter jet pilot. This was very difficult for most students. Even for students with a reaction speed of 8 milliseconds, it was still very difficult. This was because all the assessments were set on this standard. However, Zhu Tui's standard reaction speed was as high as 1 millisecond. In terms of data, his reaction speed was 8 times faster than the requirement. It was very difficult to get high school students or even ordinary university students to do the third-year mathematics. Even for college students who had passed the exam, there was still a possibility that they would make a mistake if there were tricky questions. However, it would not be difficult if it was done by a mathematics professor. Zhu Tui had participated in this assessment with a reaction speed of 1 millisecond. The limit was 8 milliseconds. It was like a math professor doing high school math. There was no difficulty. There was no difficulty at all. The only thing Zhu Tui needed to do was familiarize himself with the various flying techniques and external factors during the 7 rounds of training. On the 10th day, Zhu Tui successfully passed the extreme test for his special flying license. The reason why it took 10 days was that there were 2 additional rounds of flying training for the repulsive force skateboard. Coach Lin, who was in charge of Zhu Tui, had nothing to say. Putting aside his flying experience, Zhu Tui's ability to drive a flying car had far surpassed his. Zhu Tui, you have passed the extreme test. However, the extreme test is not conducted through the usual channels. All of your test recordings and data records have to be submitted to the Capital City Transportation Department's expert team for verification. You can only get a special flying license after they pass the review. Of course, passing should not be a problem. However, you might have to wait 3 to 5 days before you can get your special flying license, Coach Lin said. I understand. Thank you, Coach Lin. Zhu Tui left the special flight driving school. However, due to the opening of the Year 1 Longhu list, the number of students who came to the special flying driving school for various learning and training had decreased significantly. Almost half of the training flying cars were empty. The students were still able to differentiate the priorities. After the 3-month growth period, regardless of whether they could make it onto the Year 1 Longhu list, this was actually a comprehensive exam for the students. It was also a reshuffling of the school's resources allocation. Other than a small number of students who were interested in scientific research, most of the students were seizing the time to engage in actual combat and increase their combat experience. Strength was just the foundation. How much strength they could display was their true ability. Some people had good cards, but for various reasons, they played badly. Some people played badly, but they managed to get through the situation. Of course, Zhu Tui did not need that. To be honest, Zhu Tui, who had experienced a few major battles, was already looking down on the actual combat training within the Wuxia Genetic Evolution College. If he wanted to quickly improve his combat skills, he would have to go to a regular arena like the Sea Paradise. However, Zhu Tui called Chai Zhao on the way back. Brother Chai, did you and sister-in-law miss my whip? FCAC. What are you saying? What do you mean by your sister-in-law and I missing your whip? Kid, are you inviting us to spar with you and prepare for the Year 1 Longhu list? Chai Zhao was definitely a smart person. The moment Zhu Tui opened his mouth, he could basically guess Zhu Tui's true motive. That's not right. With your strength, you can reach the top 10 or even the top 3 of the year 2 Longhu list. Do you still need to prepare for the year 1 Longhu list? Chai Zhao immediately reacted. Brother Chai, I have the intention to prepare for battle. It's mainly because I have some new abilities and want to test them out. I'll see you at the actual combat training building at 5 p.m. tomorrow, Zhu Tui said sincerely. FCAC, just tell us directly if you want us to be your sparring partners. You even have to take a detour. No problem, he'll be there on time. But remember to reduce the meals I owe you. Chai Zhao smiled. Sure, it's just 3 meals. Look at how stingy you are. I'll treat you one day. You were the one who offered to treat me. I didn't force you. I took it seriously. No problem. No matter what, Zhu Tui's assets were in the millions. Zhu Tui agreed readily. Oh, that's right, Brother Chai, you must bring your wife along. Zhu Tui hung up after he finished speaking. On the other end of the phone, Chai Zhao, who had just been hung up, suddenly realized something. What did he mean by he had to bring his wife along? FCAC. It turned out that Zhu Tui had circled around him again. Zhu Tui clearly wanted to spar with Kai Hongying. It was obvious that he looked down on Chai Zhao's strength. This kid dares to look down on me. When I master my ultimate move, Chai Zhao muttered unhappily and slowly stopped. A strange smile appeared on his face. It was mainly because Chai Zhao had come back to his senses. Zhu Tui was very familiar with Kai Hongying. If he wanted to find Kai Hongying as a sparring partner, he could just contact her directly. He even took a detour to look for Chai Zhao. Chai Zhao had not seen Zhu Tui wrongly. It was Sunday. At noon, Zhu Tui continued his one-on-one VIP delivery session for Zhao Saxui. There was a set of peppercorn mushrooms, 6 prawns, and a set of white lotus. It was Zhao Xu's lunch. Recently, perhaps it was because Zhu Tui had opposed her in the past, or perhaps it was because Zhu Tui had deliberately kept a distance from her. But Li Yuanin would no longer stay at the Research Institute number 14 for lunch. In any case, Zhu Tui would not bring her food even if she insisted on staying. She also did not want to bring contempt upon herself. She did not do anything too out of line too. However, her dressing was still very sexy and pleasing to the eye. The fragrance of the perfume, which had always been exquisite and light, made Zhu Tui's nose twitch. After all, he was just a hot-blooded 19-year-old. In the Research Institute number 14, Zhu Tui kept eating the fruit platter that he had made himself. He also took the opportunity to watch Zhao Saxui eat. He was a little bored. This was also the trouble that Li Yuanin, the financial inspector, had caused after she entered the Research Institute number 14. In the past, Zhu Tui would be able to change the cultivation fluid from the incubation chamber, including all kinds of other consumables, as long as Zhao Saxui gave him the authorization. But now, he had to go through Li Yuanin, the financial inspector. For this reason, Li Yuanin had to work overtime on Sunday. However, it was already 2 in the afternoon. Zhu Tui still had to wait. Zhu Tui, I remember that the year 1 Longhu list is about to open, right? And Zhao Saxui, who had always been a quiet person, suddenly spoke up after they finished their meal. That's right, Miss Anne. The Longhu list will be open next Wednesday. The rankings will be held for 3 days. Within 3 days, any freshman can directly challenge the various positions on the rankings. 3 days later, if we want to challenge the various rankings again, we will have to follow the rules of the Longhu list, Zhu Tui said. Yes, I know. It shouldn't be difficult for you to obtain the position of Tiger in the first year, right? And Zhao Saxui asked. I don't think so. Zhu Tui was still a little humble. After all, modesty was a virtue. I only have one request for you. You have to stay in the position of a first-year dragon for at least 3 months. The position of a first-year dragon must be maintained for 3 months in a row to be effective. And Zhao Xu's tone was very normal, but there was a hint of seriousness. It could be said that Zhao Saxui was giving Zhu Tui an order. Maintain it for 3 months. Yes, I understand. Zhu Tui nodded in agreement. Don't be careless. And Zhao Xu's expression became even more serious. Remember, the position of the dragon of first years is much more important than you think. The benefits involved are huge. You have to be extremely careful. Although you have to restrain yourself in the internal competition of the school, you have to remove the threat of your opponent immediately. Don't leave him any chance to hurt you. Don't think about how long the other party would be bedridden. That's the school's problem. The position of a first-year dragon, 3 months. Do you understand? This was the first time in Zhao Saxui had told Zutui something so seriously. This made him very curious. However, and Zhao Saxui spoke again before Zutui could. I know what you want to ask, but there are confidentiality rules. I can't say it for the time being. However, I can reveal to you that the top 10 students of each grade, including the Wuxia Genetic Evolution College, will automatically obtain a spot in the intergalactic battlefield. This spot is extremely important to your future development, and Zhao Saxui suddenly said. Zutui was stunned. Then, he was pleasantly surprised. A spot in the intergalactic battlefield? Missin, do you mean that one can obtain a spot to head to the intergalactic battlefield if they maintain their position as a dragon or tiger for more than 3 months? Zutui asked. It's not what you think. This spot is more about obtaining benefits that can only be obtained outside the Blue Star. At the same time, there was indeed a chance to head to Outer Earth. Because of the confidentiality clause, I can only reveal this much to you. I can only tell you the rest after you stabilize your position. Remember, stay in your position for 3 months. This is the only chance to obtain this spot without paying any price, and Zhao Saxui reminded again. I understand. Zutui nodded heavily. By the way, if possible, try your best to get first place in this year's comprehensive assessment, and Zhao Saxui suddenly said. Huh? Zutui nodded with a hint of doubt. Zutui's original intention was to ask about the benefits. And Zhao Saxui glanced at Zutui and said, Do you still remember what Wen Xiao did to you? Yes? Then, if you get first place in the comprehensive assessment of the first year, and obtain the position of the first-year dragon, Wen Xiao and the others will have to come and beg me. And Zhao Saxui suddenly laughed. Really? Of course it's true. Then I'll do my best. Zutui patted his chest loudly. He had been tricked by Wen Xiao during his actual combat class. He had been holding his anger until now. Zutui had never been a magnanimous person. However, he had to hold back his anger when he had no chance or ability. After all, this was an orderly society. Now that he heard what Zhao Saxui said, his chance was here. Yes, they've gone overboard over the years. If you can do it well this time, I'll ask them to spit out everything they swallowed. And Zhao Xu's peaceful face had a hint of sternness.